Okay, now what I want to do is I want to talk about the adjustment brush. The adjustment brush is a localized way of making adjustments similar to what we did in the basics tab and possibly some of the other tabs. Now, here's my brush sitting right here. There is a diameter, a size, a feather, a flow, and a density related to this brush. They're all down here in the lower portion of all this. I know it looks intimidating with all these sliders in here, but once you realize there's not that much, to really get all excited about, let's just see this. Size, feather, flow, and density. Flow means how fast is the effect that I choose up here coming out of the brush. The density is the overall amount that is going on, or coming out, I should say, the feather value and the size. If I put my cursor back inside the document window, you're going to see that I have a solid black circle that defines the brush itself. The space between the solid circle and the dash circle is the feather transition. What I'm going to do is I'm going to reduce this to 50, then put my brush out there. Now do you see how we have less than we had before? I'm going to go put that back up to 100. There you go. Now, the size works this way. Yikes! All right. And then, again, it goes back this way. The feather at 100 is in direct proportion to the size of your brush. Well, it's at any value, it's in direct proportion to your brush. But the only way to actually really get a good handle on this is to play around and use it. So now what we can do is we come over here and we add a new brush. And I can actually take my exposure and reduce it to -0.7. And wherever I paint, I can darken. Not a big fan of this because if I wanted to darken more stuff, I'd have to come back up over here and do that stroke and then come down here and do this stroke. I probably would rather do something like this over, and then I have to come over here and give a little tap up there to darken that a little bit. I'd rather do that using one of my other features, such as the parametric. But that's besides the point. I have to show you. Here's your little pins, and if I hold my cursor over, put the center of my brush over the pin, I get to see in a masked kind of an environment where my brush stroke has been applied. And you can see that I have a brush stroke applied all inside here. Well, if I don't want it to be all in there, then I can click on the erase. Notice I have different parameters by the default of the erase. I have no feather, and I want to increase that feather to that size. Then I'm going to come in here and just do that to get rid of any stroke that may have come over here. And if I put my cursor over here, you can see how that has changed. I think I want to come in and do something along there too. And then hold this over, and you can see how I'm erasing the effect. Adding in, taking out, and all that kind of stuff. All right, so that's that. Now, if I wanted to add another point, but this time the point is going to lighten up the shadows, I can actually come over here and lighten up the shadows, and I'm just going to go to 50 and come in here, and I'm going to just paint a little stroke there, and I darkened my shadows. Oh, undo. The reason for that is I had this. I need to put that at 0 and then come in here and lighten up my shadows that way. You got to make sure that you have certain things turned on and turned off. That was my mistake. All right. Similarly, if you wanted to paint in some clarity, then you can go ahead and paint in some clarity. I'd come over here and set that. I need to come over here and create a new brush as opposed to add. I'm going to create a new brush. I have to start this whole thing all over again. All right, so now what I want you to do is click on the adjustment brush icon over here. I'm going to place my brush inside my document window so you can actually see the brush. The main part of the brush where the effect is going to be painted with is within that solid circle in the center. The outer diameter, which is represented by the dashed circle, represents the feathered transitional edge. So from that dashed circle in towards the solid circle is that feathered transitional soft edge kind of a thing. The brush can be determined by these sliders down here. I have a certain size, full-on feather. The flow is, it's only coming out at 50% of its flow rate, but the density is going to be 100% applied. By default, you probably have the option to lighten up your image, and what I want to do is possibly darken my image. So I'm just going to come in here and put a negative inside there, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to paint around here. There you go, and I'm just going to come in there and paint a little bit and then paint a little bit that way. After I've done my initial first stroke, you'll see that I get a little pin here. Placing my cursor over the pin will show me this foggy area, which represents where I've actually painted that effect. You can see that I've gone too far into the sign over here, and I should possibly have used a smaller feather value so I wouldn't have such a large transitional edge going on. I can get rid of that by using the erase, but what I wanted to mention to you is, as soon as I did my first click and release, every other subsequent one was an add to the current one. If I wanted to erase, I can come over here and click on this. Because that's the pin that's selected, I can erase those effects. What I might want to do is raise my feather value a little bit, and I'm going to come in here and I'm going to just come along and paint away. As soon as I let go, we should see an update somehow, some way. And if I hold my cursor over, we can see that we have something going on. So I'm just going to come in and try to erase some of that stuff. Let's see if I was able to. Yes, I was successful. Let's see if I can come in and kind of erase this stuff on the wheel. There you go. So, success. Now, if I wanted to lighten up, as an example, just lighten up the shadow areas a little bit, I would click on Create a New Brush. Deactivates this guy, but I can still place my cursor over to see where it's being affected. Now what I can do is I can set this to 0, because my new brush, I don't want to darken the exposure anymore. What I may want to do is I may want to increase the brightness of the shadow regions in here. So I'm just going to paint like that and let go, and you can see that there is, in that area, some lightening of the shadow areas in there. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to create a new brush, and this brush is going to be a clarity enhancement in specific areas such as this here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to come in and I'm going to paint in some clarity. It's going to give it a little bit of punch in this area here. All right. Whether or not it's totally 100% noticeable, I'm not 100% sure, but I'm going to do it up here as well. And I think you saw a little bit of ka-chung going on in there. So there, that's the area that I affected. If I don't want to have that whole area affected, again, I can come over here, grab the erase tool, come in here and erase some of that clarity that was applied to that part of the image. Okay, so there we go. That's basically how this stuff works. And if you want to not see the pins, then we can just turn the pins on and off. And if you want to clear the pins, there you go, clear them away. If you don't like an adjustment that you've made, as an example, let's say I didn't like this adjustment here, I can click on that, and then what I do is I hit the delete key. That will get rid of that. If you're on the Windows platform, you'd hit your backspace key. That's how you get rid of individual pins. If you want to do something else inside here, you can actually click and drag by holding down the control key. That will allow you to drag left or right to increase or decrease your brush size. I'm just wondering if there's anything else in here that I need to show you. and I'm not 100% sure, so I think I'm just going to leave it at that.